Moodlings. My name is Dr. Nicole Lunan, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of MoodMe, a new app that allows you to share over 400 plus moods, emotions, and desires with the people that you care most about, thus making a tough thing like communication cute, effective, and super easy. So today I'm going to be teaching you about how to silence your inner critic. But first, what is your inner critic? The inner critic is a fear-based voice masquerading as a voice of reason. It's typically pessimistic, paranoid, and afraid of the world. So it's going to try to persuade you to not move forward and to stay in the same place, the same patterns that you're in, because that feels safe to your inner critic. The inner critic is driven to protect you from threats. So trying something new and taking chances to learn and grow. The inner critic doesn't like that. Why? Well, there's a potential that you'll fail, get hurt, decide to hope only to reach disappointment. The inner critic originates from the ego, and the ego is still living in times where we literally had to hunt for our food and live out in the wild off of the land. It served its purpose to keep us safe and stable by encouraging us to do the same things over and over again. For example, stay away from that lion because it's gonna eat you. But nowadays, we aren't hunting lions, but we are hunting for things like a deep, profound love or a new job opportunity. So the inner critic is trying its best to protect you from what it thinks is dangerous. You do not need to answer or listen to your inner critic. The inner critic is that scared like child part of ourselves that is hiding ourselves from the world. So we want to make sure that we don't hate it, but meet it with love, but actually be super stern and disciplined about it. Now, before we go any further, please make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. All right, so we got a couple tips for you on how to silence your inner critic. Let's start with tip number 1. Imagine what your inner critic looks like. To really get a hold on your inner critic, it has helped my clients to imagine what it looks like. I had one say it looks like a mean general barking orders at him, or another said that it looks like a growing ball of black energy kind of laced with red. The imagination is powerful and most likely already has an image of what the inner critic looks like. So close your eyes, visualize it, and draw it out. This will help you regain power back from it and increase awareness. Tip number 2, what does your inner critic sound like? In order to tame and silence the inner critic, you have to understand what it sounds like. This can be done by writing down the mean things that your inner critic says to you in a second person format, using the word you instead of I. Like, you can't do this instead of I can't do this. Write down all the negative things that it has said to you so that you can get these criticisms out of your head and on the paper, thus making it easier to not internalize them. With most things, it's best to write them down instead of let them circle around your mind. This activity will help you clear some mental space and increase awareness around what your inner critic sounds like and its voice. Tip number 3, don't internalize this voice, but externalize it. In order to put some solid boundaries between you and your inner critic, I want you to bring it outside of yourself and imagine that it is its own being. Instead of it being inside of your head, you can imagine it standing beside you. This can be seen in movies where they depict the devil on the shoulder. This will help you separate yourself from your inner critic and organize your thoughts better. Also, whenever you want to push it out of your space, you can visually tell it to go away and create a wall in between you two. It's also helped my clients to give the inner critic a funky, weird, cool nickname. Something you can laugh at, like Judge Judy, or one of my clients nicknamed her as Regina George, because her inner critic reminded her of that specific character. Tip number 4, learn about your inner critic's timing. So once you know what your inner critic looks like, sounds like, feels like, and you've externalized it outside of yourself, you can become familiar when it pops up and starts talking. Become aware when it decides to visit you and which situations it's super vocal about, because that's most likely where you should keep persevering and moving forwards. The inner critic wouldn't pop up unless you're about to break through and take some new chances. Underneath your fear lies great opportunities, because when you start doing the things that scare you the most, tearing down the invisible barriers that separate you from the good life, you become the person that you've always dreamed about in your mind, your ideal self. Tip number 5, shut it down and silence it. When you catch your inner critic talking to you, you can now tell it to leave. You can say, I appreciate your advice, but I'm not listening to you. Please leave. Or you can just tell it to shut up. And since you have externalized this inner critic, you can literally watch it walking out the door or disappearing into thin air. You must be stern with it because it will sense if you're feeling indecisive. Tell it to leave as if a stranger has just intruded on your personal space, because that's what's actually happening. The more you tame your inner critic and ask it to leave, the less power it will have when it returns. Unfortunately, the ego or critical voice is a part of us as humans, so it does not just disappear forever. However, you will know it so well that when it does appear, it will not hold the same power and control over you as it used to. You will have tamed it, and you'll be able to lead your life from a place of abundance and confidence and not fear. So there you have it, some fun tips on how to silence your inner critic. If this video helped you in any way, or you have more tips that you want to share, please leave your comments in this section below. Like, share, and subscribe, and see you later, Moodlings.